Alrighty, welcome to the 98th edition of Before the Battle here live on YouTube. My name is Nick Baldwin of BloodyElbow.com, and joining me as always is Jed Meshew of MMAfighting.com, and back for the first time in a couple of weeks. We missed you, Wes Riddle of MMAsucker.com. Jed, first, how are you?
Excellent, Nikolai. How are you doing, sir?
Can't complain, not too bad. Wes, it's as I said, you were not here last week. You were not here for the first show of 2018. You did make it, in fact, for the UFC 220 title fight blockbuster card, whatever you want to call it. But it's been a couple weeks. How are you?
Doing all right. Now that things have calmed down a little bit, I'm getting in the hang of school here, my last semester of college, and trying to rock and roll, get some work done here and there, but also make time for this. And always love chatting with you guys. So I'm ready to get talking about a pretty decent card. I think we got an all right card. I think a lot of people are criticizing it, but I think there's some pretty good fights that we'll see come Saturday night.
The thing with this card, UFC Fight Night 125 in Belém, Brazil on Saturday, headlined by Lyoto Machida versus Eric Anders, is I feel as far as head to toe, it might actually be better than last week's UFC on Fox 27, but I'm not sure we get that big fight that I'm like super looking forward to. Like for me, I was excited for Jacare Brunson too. Machida Anders isn't quite the same quality in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel, but maybe as far as including prelims, this card you could argue is better than last week's Fox card.
I do agree to a point. I think there's some. I think the name value might be a little bit less, but I think that the stylistic matchups that we have, and also some of the like debuting fighters that we're going to see. There's only 2 or 3 on the card that are debuting. We talked about it off air, but I think overall that there should be some pretty good fights that come out of it, and maybe some pretty entertaining finishes. And that's one thing I'm looking for. I like the stylistic matchups a little bit more sometimes than the fighters themselves.
All right,
straight
Jed?
up, I think this is a better card. I think this is a better card last week's. Last week didn't really have a ton of appeal for almost anybody. I mean, look, Drew Dober was on the freaking main card of a Fox card. I feel you in general because I think we're all going to end up picking Eric Anders, and that's sort of why it feels that way. If Lyoto Machida wins, then I think we would kind of look back on this a little differently. It'll be much more appealing for Machida to get a win, adding coverage that we've had. Guillermo Cruz is down there, us doing around stuff. You can see that like Machida is a big ass star in his country. Like they love him there, so it's a little weird that they've given him a young, hungry guy. But we'll get into all that later. But I get the sense that the feeling on the ground is more involved than last week's at Charlotte. And top to bottom, I just think it's a better card. Maybe you might be right about the tying. I don't know, not as name value. I think this is I'm certain watch this just because it's got my girl on it, the best women's fighter in the world. So I'd be excited about it.
All right, you kind of went robot on me there. I don't know if that's my connection or if that's the internet. Okay, Wes just said it's bad for him too. So Jed, I don't know. Your Wi-Fi is not very good, so
we'll reconnect.
Sure, go ahead. But I guess now we can't really do much because now is the time in the show where I would usually go to Jed and say, "All right, let's go back last week to our results," and he's not here. So I mean, this card just to again, we have Valentina Shevchenko. That's interesting, and here comes Jed, and there he is. Hopefully your connection is better. Hopefully we can understand you 100% of the time. But let's go back to the Jacare Souza, Derek Brunson 2 card, UFC on Fox 28 in Charlotte, North Carolina this past Saturday. Let's go to Jed for our results, our picks, our DraftKings, our underdog pick of the week, our bonuses. What do you have for us, good sir?
If you recall, last week I entered the competition holding 2 belts. I started the year off with all 3 of them, the first time ever, triple champ. But I relinquished last week my DraftKings belt to Wes Riddle. He was not here to claim his prize, but he had the belt. I took it back from him this week. You're looking at the full champ once again, picks and DraftKings right here. And instead, Wes, the the lesser of the belts, the bonus belt. Wes can have the trifling little bonus belt. He took that from me. Your scores for last week's UFC on Fox 27. Your picks went 9-3. I missed on Kish Lima and Derek Brunson. Also, you could argue that Andre Fili, who I picked to win, he got this decision on the judges' scorecards. I think there's a very good argument that Dennis Bermuda should have come over the win, and that might have changed some things up there. Wes came in second place with an 8-4 record. He missed on Arnett, the opener. Kish, Camacho, and Brunson. And then Nikolai, you bringing up the rear at 7-5. You missed on Silva, Kish, Camacho, Bermudez, and Brunson. As far as our bonus picks go, again, Wesley Riddle now has our belt in this category. He had a good week, actually. The fight of the night that week was Dober Camacho. Wes correctly predicted that. And the performances went to Jacare Souza and Mirsad Bektic for their outstanding performances, knockout victories. Wes had Bektic on his team, so he comes in with two picks on that cash for him good. His other pick was Brunson. Obviously, that didn't work out, but it was much better than us because me and you, Nick, we goose-egged the whole thing. You had Pichel Silva as your fight of the night. I had Arnett Sandhagen. Both okay fights, I guess, not anywhere near the Dober Camacho scrap that we had. And then, Nick, you and I had the same performances, Derek Brunson and Gregor Gillespie. Gillespie did show out, but not enough to get that bonus, and all of our underdogs missed. Nick, you and I had extremely similar picks on the bonuses, and big goose egg. This is to our last bit of housekeeping, which was your DraftKings, and that is right. Your boy is the champion, once again reclaiming his title by the narrowest of victories, 486 points to 480.5 points for you, Nikolai. I edged you by 6.5 points. A pretty solid showing. Corey Sandhagen, Gregor Gillespie, Mirsad Bektic, all with 100-point showings. Andre Fili put in 93 points. And then the rest of my team, Derek Brunson and Juliana Lima, combined for 21 points. But, Nick, you and I were our teams. You also had Derek Brunson, which hurt you. And you had Sandhagen, Gillespie, and Nico Price getting you triple digits. Frank Camacho just didn't quite perform to the same level that Andre Fili did. But if Fili hadn't gotten that judge's decision, that is maybe bad, you would be our DraftKings winner. Wes, 300 in a competitive draft this week. But once again, I'm still holding two belts. You guys haven't been able to take dog.
He's celebrating all
by
himself.
That's pretty bad.
Jesus. What the fuck is this about?
Dude, I have no clue.
Jed, you're a robot. You're just we can call you Mr. Robot now.
Well, why don't you guys jump in and say that instead of letting me talk for like 10 minutes?
Sorry. Well, one minute you're like this, the next minute you're up here.
Jeez.
I guess we'll just go on and see how it goes. Where are you? Are you like back at your parents or?
Same place.
No, but your background's different. Your background's
I don't have
different.
the same background for the last like 3 times we filmed. I'm glad. Okay. Anyway, the end result is I'm your picks and your DK champion. Wes Riddle, your bonus champion. We can move on to new business.
Okay, let's do that real quick because we are. Oh, Jed's gone too. All right, let's move on. UFC Fight Night 125 goes down from Belém, Brazil this Saturday night. We have a middleweight fight in the main event. Lyoto Machida, former light heavyweight champion, taking on rising star Eric, ya boy Anders, 2-0 in the UFC, former football player. This guy is super athletic, but he's never fought anyone nearly of Machida's caliber, arguably even Lyoto Machida of today. Like Machida maybe 5 years ago, that's a different story. But even today, Machida is probably the best fighter Anders has ever fought. And so it's an interesting test. It's not a walk in the park for Anders, but it's not a fight where he can't win either. So it's going to be interesting. So we'll get to that. We also have John Dodson, Pedro Munoz, Valentina Shevchenko's flyweight debut on the main card. We'll get to that and more in a little bit, but we'll start out on the UFC Fight Pass early prelims. We have newcomers in the women's strawweight division. Maya Stevenson taking on Poliana Viana. Dama de Ferro. Jed, let me see. Are you back? You are back. Let's see how this goes. Who is your pick in this opener for UFC Belém? Stevenson or the Brazilian, Poliana Viana?
I'm taking Pollyanna Vienna. Keep this short and sweet since I don't know if I'm gonna lag out real hard on you guys or not. This is straight up striker versus grappler. Maya Stevenson, more of a boxer, has some type of a Golden Gloves background to her. Pollyanna Vienna is an accomplished BJJ practitioner. Won a world championship 2015. Also, just like she's bad on the feet. There's no ifs, ands, buts, ways around it. Pollyanna Vienna is not a good striker, but she is not afraid of striking. She doesn't look like Demian Maia on the feet, who clearly is uncomfortable. She is just not good at it, but she's willing to kind of sling shots. They just look ugly. So even on the feet, I think she would get pieced up by Maya Stevenson, but it's not going to be that she's afraid of getting hit. She's going to come through. She's going to get the takedown, and she's going to tap out Maya Stevenson with pretty quick aplomb here. Give me Pollyanna Vienna by I'm going to say first round submission.
I'm leaning the same way in this one. I don't really have too much else to add. Only thing I could add is that Maya Stevenson, all of her victories came over fighters who actually didn't even have a win on the resume, which kind of says a lot. And the fights that she's fought and she's lost to, they haven't been good performances at all. She pretty much gets taken down or even pressured up against the cage and just doesn't look that great. I'm pretty confident in Pollyanna Vienna. I don't know how to say her last name, but I think that after watching a little bit of tape on her, I think she's the better fighter. Jed said it. She doesn't have the best striking, but her grappling and her submission skills are fantastic. Seeing that Stevenson's fallen a few times by submission, I'm pretty confident that Viana's are going to be able to get the job done. And I'm thinking early too. So I would be exact same. I picked the first round submission for Pollyanna Vienna over Maya Stevenson.
I would have to agree. Give me the Brazilian newcomer Pollyanna Vienna. I basically will, you guys both hit the nail on the head here. She's a better grappler by a mile. I want to say she's slightly younger. I think that's true. She has a better record. She's 9-1. Stevenson 6-4. She's been stomped, I think, a couple of times too. Basically here, Vienna, Stevenson might be a better striker, but there's no way that Vienna will let her keep it standing. Vienna is going to take this to the ground and tap out Stevenson sometime within 10 minutes. I'll go the first round. I'll say Pollyanna Vienna picks up some sort of submission in round number 1. If it goes a bit later, I'm not going to be shocked out of my mind or anything, but I will go with the first round finish to kick things off at UFC Belém in a good way. So give me Pollyanna Vienna by first round submission. We move on to the feature fight pass early prelim. The men's flyweight division, we got Davijan Figueiredo taking on Joseph Bopo Morales. Pretty interesting one at 125 pounds. Jed, do you like the American or the Brazilian?
I don't even know what fight we're talking about. Oh, the Davison Figueiredo. How do you pronounce that? Oh, this is exciting. This is one of the few underdogs I'm taking on this card. I think this is a really close fight. I think it's a fairly competitive bout here, honestly. But Figueiredo has not super impressed me. He's okay. He's a good grappler, kind of really where he's made his hay. But I don't think he's I don't think he's a great wrestler. Just in general, he hasn't really impressed me in that regard. He's also way too content to go for a guillotine when somebody jumps in on him, and if he gets it, great, and if he doesn't, then he can apparently win a close fight against Jared Brooks by convincing the judges that failed guillotine attempts have been good. But I think that's not a recipe for sustained success. Whereas Joseph Morales kind of impressed me. I mean, his UFC debut, he dropped, I forget who he's fighting off the top of my head, but cracked him with a laser right hand, ended up snaking to the back and finishing it out. Like, got skills everywhere, and I just think he might be a little more dynamic of a fighter. I haven't done a ton of research on their pre-UFC stuff, so look, I'm willing to be wrong here, but I don't know. never been a huge Figueiredo fan, and Morales impressed me. I think he looks like he maybe has some talent. So I'm going to take Joseph Morales just because I think he can compete in all phases. Maybe he's a little behind in the grappling, but if he can get on top, I think that kind of mitigates some of that, assuming Figueiredo doesn't get the guillotine. So give me Morales in a slight upset pick.
It's funny because this is also one of the underdog picks that I was going for too. I was kind of leaning the same way. Um, the reason I didn't want to pick Devison was that I feel like sometimes he just uh, I feel like he's a little bit unpredictable, and sometimes when he fights, especially on the feet, his strikes sometimes he just kind of holds back in areas where he probably should be pushing forward, and just doesn't throw sometimes in a lot of volume unless he hurts you. But then again, the one guy that he fought and beat, Marco Beltran, who he ended up stopping by, I think doctor stoppage. There wasn't a whole lot of volume there at the last kind of 30 seconds when he hurt him. Of course, he did get the finish, but I felt like maybe he could have put a little more pressure on him and then saved a couple seconds there in the end. I've seen Joseph Morales. I think he's a pretty decent fighter. I like his skill set. I do question his stand-up sometimes, but he does show some good footwork, some good movement. He also likes to look quite a bit for submissions. He's pretty active once he gets takedowns, and he looks for takedowns quite a bit. He also has a win over Sean Santella, who's a really, really good fighter. That's probably the biggest win on his career or throughout his career. And he's still undefeated, so we have to think that one of these guys is going to get the first loss. And I was kind of thinking that maybe Joseph Morales is going to be able to get the job done. Like Jed said, I question Devison's takedown defense. I'm not really sure that he's going to do too well off his back. Does show stand up sometimes, but I think that Joseph Morales has the ability to kind of mitigate the striking of Devison, get in there, look for double legs like he usually does, and get the fight on the ground and win it that way. So I was leaning maybe a split decision, a unanimous decision in favor for Joseph Morales, the underdog in this one. But it could be, like Jet said, I thought the same thing. I think this is going to be one of the closer fights on the card. Split decision could be possible, but I'm going to take the underdog here, Joseph Morales.
Well, I will not make this a hat trick for the underdog here. I will go Davijon Figueiredo here in a close fight. This is actually one I'm looking forward to. I think we could see some interesting grappling exchanges here. And I think that, it's actually kind of intriguing, even if it's playing out on the feet, where both guys are still getting better. But it's still, I feel like it still could be competitive wherever the fight plays out. Although I feel like Figueiredo has the stand-up advantage. And the grappling is really close. Like, I want to see more of Joseph Morales. I think he can do well going forward. I think this might just be a little too much too soon because he is a younger guy. Both guys are undefeated, though. Figueiredo is, of course, 13-0. With Bopo Morales is 9-0. So interesting in that regard. Both guys are talented. I really do think both guys have what it takes to – I can't say they're going to be contenders, but I feel like they might find their way into the flyweight top 15 eventually. I think Figueiredo is already there. He's number 14. And so Morales, gets a win. That's a big win for him. But I feel like Morales might land some takedowns, but I feel like although Morales might be a little more dynamic on the mat, he's more of a finisher. He's not as tentative, I feel, but I think Figueiredo just has his actual skills are slightly higher level than Morales's. I think Figueiredo is just a bit more established than Morales, who still I feel is a bit greener than Figueiredo, and that's really what this pick comes down to. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be a close fight. A split decision wouldn't surprise me, and the fact that this is in Brazil makes me feel a little better about the Figueiredo pick. Because if you remember, Figueiredo is coming off that Jared Brooks split decision win, which I actually scored for Figueiredo, but I think more people scored for Brooks than Figueiredo, and he got the nod in Brazil, and so Brazilian judges, voting in favor of Brazilians. Seems to be a something that happens fairly often. So I'm going to go Davijon Figueiredo by split decision because I do think it'll be close. I think it'll be a pretty fun fight where Figueiredo just gets the better of Morales ever so slightly. Let's move on to the FS2 or televised prelims. They kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We kick things off in the bantamweight division. We got another interesting grappling match or fight between two guys that are talented on the ground that could serve as a fun grappling match. We got Iuria Alcantara taking on Joe Soto. Both guys are in the losing column right now. They're in need of W's. Who will get back on track, Jed? Joe Soto or Yuri Alcantara?
Oh man, this one's tough for me. Joe Soto seems to just be impossible for me to predict what's going to happen in his fights. I know that he is good at fighting. I know it, but he finds ways to lose fights he should win. I mean, credit John's one of the submissions of the year, that calf slicer, but like, Joe Soto shouldn't be getting caught with a calf slicer, man. This is a dude who almost won an EBI. Like, he can friggin' grapple, and he got calf slicered like a rookie by Brett Johns. Like, every time he seems like he might be ready to put something together and do something good, he kind of seems to be shit in the bed here. On the other hand, Yuri Alcantara is, frankly, those words can also apply to Yuri Alcantara. And so it's tough. You know, Alcantara's coming in off of 2 losses. And could have been 3. Like, he was getting his ass beat by Luke Sanders until he hit that leg lock on him. So these are not 2 guys on an upward trajectory, and it makes it really difficult for me to tell here. On the feet, I think maybe Soto has a bit more skill, but Alcantara is a more dangerous fighter. And on the ground, I think maybe you could say the same thing just in general, but I don't know. I don't know who's going to win the grappling exchanges here. I don't have a good feel on how any of this fight is going to break down, basically. So I'm really kind of grasping at straws here. My best guess is that I think Yuri Alcantara is maybe a little bit better of a wrestler, or at least a more active wrestler, and just a more dangerous fighter. And Joe Soto is not the most durable guy, so I'm going to edge on the side of believing Alcantara lands a bigger shot on the feet that can change the trajectory, or maybe snakes for a leg or something like that. I'm super not going to be surprised if Joe Soto just kind of chokes out Yuri Alcantara. It's happened before, but frankly, I just don't know what the fuck to expect here. I'm taking Alcantara. I don't feel good about it, but I think he's an underdog, so at least that's exciting for me. Yeah, he's a very slight basis. Give me Yuri Alcantara because I think he is a more dangerous guy, but I don't feel good or confident at all.
I was kind of thinking the same thing with Jed. I think this is one of the harder fights on the card to pick because both guys show a lot of inconsistencies in their game, especially recently. I feel like there are fights that Joe Soto kind of probably should have showed a little bit more, and he wasn't able to get the job done. Yuri Alcantara, the fight with Alejandro Perez, a fight I was pretty sure he was going to be able to get the job done, and just didn't show a lot in that fight either. And the past 2 fights before that, Kelleher got choked out really quick with a guillotine. Granted, Kelleher has a fantastic guillotine choke, but still Yuri knows what he's doing, and he's a veteran of the game. So, and then the Luke Sanders fight, it was a fight he was really down in, a pretty 10-8 round in the first, and came back with a knee bar in the second because Sanders just kind of sat there in his guard. The pick and win was good. It's a hard fight to pick. I was going to go Yuri Alcantara, but just to make it fun and interesting, since Jed's going one way, I'm going to go the other. I did have Alcantara, but I'm going to switch it up and go with Joe Soto. I think that Soto has ability sometimes to get the job done in fights where kind of makes his technical errors, but I feel like Alcantara kind of does the same thing, as I kind of hinted on a minute ago. But I feel like at this point in their career, seeing that Yuri Alcantara is kind of getting up there in fight age and also just age in general, he's 37 years old. He has almost 50 fights on his career, or he's approaching 50 fights. Joe Soto still has a decent amount, but he's only 30. I'm going to take the youth in this one. I'm hoping that he's going to be able to learn a little bit from this loss. And I feel like maybe Alcantara is just starting to fade a little bit. And I think this might be the fight that kind of determines whether or not he's on the downslope. So I'm going to take Joe Soto just to switch it up now. Could be a pretty fun fight, but maybe it could end early, depending on if one of these two makes a technical mistake. But I'm going to go Joe Soto by probably a decision. I think a decision is probably a good choice if you're not going with a submission.
I'm going to go with Joe Soto here as well here. Another close fight, another one that could be fun on the ground, kind of like our last one, Figueiredo versus Morales. I'm looking forward to this one. I know I saw someone on Twitter, forget who it was, say that this and one other fight are the only 2 fights they don't care about on this card. I disagree with that. I'm looking forward to this one quite a bit. The reason I'm picking Joe Soto, again, I kind of like what Wes said. I like his youth here. Not just the number, but I feel like he's taking a bit less damage. But also, I just get the sense that he, even though he's never going to fight for the UFC bantamweight title again, I feel like he still has more upside than Iri Alcantara. Is Soto on the decline? He might be, but he was on quite the run after. I mean, he fell short in his first 3 UFC fights, and it wasn't going so well. It included that title fight in his debut against TJ Dillashaw at this point over 3 years ago. But he got 3 wins in a row. He beat Chris Beal, he beat Marco Beltran, and more recently he beat Hanayaya in a fun one. And then, of course, he fell short to Brett Johnson, as Jed mentioned, in his last fight by calf slicer, one of the best submissions of 2017. And so it's going to be interesting to see how both guys rebound. I just feel like he's at this point in his career the better fighter than Alcantara. I feel like I can trust Joe Soto more right now. Alcantara has been losing fights. He should be winning. At the end of the day, I know Alejandro Perez, I feel like I don't think enough of Alejandro Perez as a fighter, but I mean, Alcantara should have won that fight. I believe he was the favorite in that one, if my memory serves me correctly. The Brian Kelleher fight is a fight at the time we thought he should have won. I mean, he was getting destroyed by Luke Sanders before pulling a rabbit out of the hat. You could argue, other than the Brad Pickett fight, he's like on a 3-fight skid, and out of that, he's just finding the success I feel like you need to have as a UFC fighter. And Joe Soto has been a bit more reliable, and I think the grappling is really close here. The big thing in this one is that Joe Soto needs to get inside. He needs to get this to the ground, and although he might actually be a better striker than Alcantara, I'm not sure he wants to stand with the Brazilian, just because Alcantara is a lot bigger than him. He has a 6-inch reach advantage, and the height is 3 inches for Yuri. And so big physical advantage for Alcantara. I can see the grappling actually going his way just out of sheer strength. I think Soto is the more skilled grappler. And I feel like at this point in time, there might actually be a bit more potential for Soto to finish Alcantara than Alcantara to finish Soto. So I'm going to go Joe Soto. In another close one, I'll go unanimous decision. I do think it'll go all 15 minutes, though I don't see a submission, and I certainly don't see a knockout. So Joe Soto by unanimous decision is my pick. We move on to we stay in the bantamweight division, I should say. We go to Douglas Silva de Andrade taking on Marlon Chito Vera. Another fun one. I like this fight quite a bit. I think the odds are close. The odds on this card are fairly close for most of the fights. There's a couple that maybe not so much, but let's talk about this one. Jed, do you like Marlon Chito Vera or Douglas Silva de Andrade in this one?
I like Marlon Vera. I think Douglas Silva de Andrade has a window to win this fight. I think it's more likely that Chito Vera gets done here. Chito Vera has been impressive. Like his last year and a half, he has steadily improved time in and time out, looked better than ever. He lost to John Lineker in his last fight. But if that was a 5-round fight, he was going to beat John Lineker. He was busting Lineker up in the 3rd round. And he had just it took him a while to get going, to get rolling, to figure out, to key in on Lineker's tendencies and stuff. But once he did, he was taking it to him. And I think that's just a sign of a well-coached fighter who is improving and getting better. I think that I like him here for similar reasons. Douglas Silva de Andrade is a super athletic guy. He relies on that athleticism a lot, but once you kind of figure him out, he's a surface level fighter. He doesn't have layers to his game. So I think this could look a little bit like the Lineker fight. I'm expecting Douglas Silva de Andrade is not as good as Lineker. I'm expecting Chito Vera to be able to make those adjustments earlier. So I think Silva de Andrade probably going to win the first, maybe just more explosive, more dynamic, and then slowly but surely Chito Vera is going to take over. I think his grappling game is super underrated, and I think he has turned into a very solid fundamental striker. I think just over the course of 15 minutes, I like Chito Vera to kind of take the last 10 of those. Won't be if Douglas Silva de Andrade can keep the momentum going, maybe he can win the first half of the fight and then just kind of sit on a decision like Lineker did. But I think it's more likely that Vera gets it done here. Give me Chito Vera by decision.
Yeah, I've been kind of back and forth on this one, honestly. But in the end, I was leaning towards Chito Vera as well. He's a guy, I said it a long time ago. Before he kind of got going, I've always been kind of high on this guy. I've always thought he shows a lot of potential in his fights. And it all kind of started back when he beat Roman Salazar back a few years ago. That's kind of where I started to like the guy. He's young. I think has a good personality, really motivated. You can tell he's really devoted to the sport just by his personality when he gets victories and when he's training and when he's there doing weigh-ins. He just has a lot of passion for the sport, and that's one thing I really respect. So Marlon Vera is a guy I really like. I think he's got the skill set to possibly get the job done here. A couple things I question. I feel like Douglas Silva de Andrade, he's a hard hitter. He comes forward sometimes with a lot of volume, but I think that hurts him as fights progress. He is, of course, has a lot of victories on his record. He does only have 2 losses, one being to Rob Font, and then one being to Zabaria Takugov. I don't know how to say his last name, but Zabaria got suspended at one point. I think that might have been the fight, but both 2 really competent, solid fighters. I think Chito Vera is a guy that could be put in that list as well. I think he's got a good skill set. I question sometimes his speed. I also question sometimes his reliance off left kicks because I feel like sometimes he throws it a little bit too much. And then again, it is a good weapon. He was able to catch Brad Pickett with it. But that was after the first, 20, 30 missed. It's a good tool, though, to keep his fighters at bay. And I feel like maybe in a fight like this where you're going up against a guy who does show quite a bit of aggression, but sometimes in bursts, if you throw that kick in there, it's kind of – I feel like it could offset some of the rhythm that the opponents come. And especially with the Andrade, I feel like maybe it could offset a little bit there. So I think that Vera is going to be able to get the job done here. I didn't put him on my DraftKings team. I actually put De Andrade on my DraftKings team, and we'll talk about that later. I just try to make some stuff work because I think Andrade does have, as Jed mentioned, a kind of a path to victory here, and maybe he could clip Chito Vera, but Vera's never been stopped before by strikes. He's a pretty tough guy and pretty tough himself, and sometimes excels as fights go on. So I'm taking Marlon Vera here as well. I haven't picked by decision over Douglas Silva de Andrade.
I like both you guys thinking. I will go Marlon Chito Vera here as well. I think this actually could look kind of like the John Lineker fight as Jed talked about, just going the other way. Because, in a way, you could argue that Douglas Silva de Andrade is kind of like a poor man's John Lineker. He's super stocky, super powerful. He just sort of wings shots. But he is a rather talented fighter. Marlon Chito Vera, we've seen a lot of his striking as of late, but people forget he has quite the ground game as well. And Silva de Andrade, his last loss was actually a submission, I believe. Right? Yeah, he was tapped out by Rob Font. I'm correct on that.
Sure,
I think so. That was back on the Shevchenko Nunes. No, that was the Romero Whitaker card, and back in July. And so I feel like that's actually an interesting path to victory. I ultimately don't think Vera is going to take this to the ground. I think I can't say he's fallen in love with the striking, but I think he wants to continue to improve and show that different or that, newer part of his game off to the masses. So I think this will be mostly a striking affair in which Chito gets the better of Silva de Andrade. I think Vera can be the more active fighter. I think he'll use a lot of kicks in this one. He'll be able to chop down the guy who has a slight physical disadvantage as far as height and reach. Not actually as much as I thought. I thought de Andrade was a bit shorter. Vera only has a 2-inch reach and 1-inch height advantage. So that's actually a little surprising to me just looking at that. But I do think Vera uses his range a bit better. I think he'll be able to keep Silva de Andrade off of him. De Andrade is kind of like a bull. He likes to get it inside. He's aggressive. But I don't think he'll really be able to do that. I think Vera's going to be able to keep him at bay and chomp him down really with leg kicks and use his jab quite well. And Marlon Vera is a guy, I know he came off of The Ultimate Fighter, and oftentimes the tough Latin America guys, some of them have done really well. Yair Rodriguez, for example, but others have sort of just fallen off. I think Marlon Vera, at a time, we sort of looked at him and the guy is okay. He's around, but he's not a super great guy or great fighter. But I think working at Team Oyama, which doesn't get the credit it deserves as a gym, as a team, I think he's actually improved quite a bit. And I think Marlon Vera is a fairly talented fighter. I think he's just going to keep getting better. He's young and he's hungry. And I like Marlon Vera here to win by decision. But Silva Andrade does have a chance. I mean, he has knockout power. Absolutely. He comes to bang. And so if Vera isn't sort of cautious in a way without being too cautious, Andrade could just knock him out. He could put his lights out, and that's something that could happen. He does have a path to victory here. I just think Vera has a few more options in this one. And so give me Chito Vera by decision. We move to the lightweight division. We have Alan Patrick returning to the cage for the first time in quite a while against Damir Hadzovic. Interesting one at 155 pounds. We got the Brazilian versus the Bosnian. Wes, I'll go to you and mix things up a little bit. Patrick or Hadzovic?
I think this is a pretty good fight. I'm curious to see how Alan Patrick's going to look. I feel like it's been a little bit since we've seen him in the octagon.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look real quick. His last fight was against Stevie Ray, which he got the victory. That was back in September of 2016. He put together a pretty impressive UFC run up until he lost to Mairbek. And also he was undefeated until then. Mairbek's his only loss. The John McDessie fight, I remember that. That was a little bit bad. I thought McDessie took that, and that's kind of when McDessie had a chin, a more durable chin, and McDessie was a little bit better than what he is now. But I thought McDessie got the job done there, and then again, it was a very close fight. I think that Alan Patrick, there's a lot of unknowns, of course, when you pick a guy who hasn't fought, and I guess approaching a year and a half now. But I don't know if Damir Hadzovic is going to be able to get the job done. I think that Alan Patrick's just a little bit more dynamic. He's got the UFC experience. I feel like this time off could have definitely helped. Then again, it could show some rust. But Hadzovic didn't really show me a lot. I know he got the job done over Marcin Held, but he just didn't show me a lot in that fight that really impressed me despite getting the victory. But we all know that was a huge comeback win. And he ended up getting starched by Mairbek pretty quickly. I think that Alan Patrick, just to kind of make this short, I think that Patrick can just get those takedowns very, very similar to what Marcin Held did. But Marcin's a predictable takedown expert. Alan Patrick, I should say, I don't know, he mixes it up a little bit more with his takedowns. And I think that Hadzovic isn't going to be able to plant a knee to the chin, similar to what he did against Marcin Held. I think that Alan Patrick's just going to be able to get those takedowns, be effective on the ground, and definitely get like a 30-27 decision in this one. Just not a lot stands out with me, as I said, with Hadzovic. So I'm definitely going to take Alan Patrick in this one by a unanimous 30-27 decision.
I think Wes kind of nails it here, so I don't need to beat all around the bush too much here. I just think all signs point to Alan Patrick here. He's going to be the bigger guy. He's got a clear reach advantage. I think on the feet he is maybe not as powerful. I mean, that was an impressive knee, certainly, that Hadzovic had. But I think he's probably just a touch more active, a touch more defensively minded. And really where this comes down to, I think Alan Patrick is going to work takedowns, and I think his ground game is just better. And that's it. I think he's a bigger dude who's going to try and work a kind of bully game, drag him to the mat, stay on top of him, smash him down. And I think he's just going to be able to do it. So straightforward affair here. The only concern would be the long period of time since we last saw Alan Patrick, over a year. I don't know exactly how long over a year, but it is a long time, so consider that. But yeah, give me Alan Patrick here, probably by decision.
I will complete the hat trick. Give me Alan Patrick in this one as well. I feel like this might be a little closer than some people or other people are thinking. Damir Hadzovic isn't a bad fighter by any means, but I think Patrick will probably clearly get the job done by decision in this one. Basically here, I mean, you guys said it as well. Patrick is a bit more technical. On the feet, it's a close fight. I mean, Hadzovic has the power, and he could definitely back Patrick up. But I think technically Patrick is slightly better on the feet. Use it and should be able to use his range as well if he so chooses. He has 4 inches of reach, and I think that definitely could help here. He's the bigger fighter. Although height is dead even, so that's interesting. But on the ground, I think that's where Patrick has his biggest advantage. He'll be able to out-grapple Hadzovic for the most of the fight, and so that's kind of how I see it going. So give me Alan Patrick by decision. I like him. Again, I can't say dominant. I think it'll be fairly, clear. I think is the best word to say. Hadzovic probably will have his moments on the feet. I think he might land a shot here and there, but mostly it'll be one-way traffic for Alan Patrick. We move on to the headliner of the FS2 prelim card. We got Sergio Moraes taking on Tim the Dirty Bird Means. Jed, will go to you first. Do you like the Brazilian or the American, the Panther versus the Dirty Bird?
I mean, I'm going to take Tim Means here, just to keep it short and simple. The only real question I have for this is Tim Means kind of done? He lost to Bilal Muhammad, who is either criminally underrated or not very good, but kind of just keeps getting wins, depending on your sort of viewpoint here in his last go. It's a real strange thing. Tim Means is a real momentum fighter, I guess. Once he starts building up momentum and rolling downhill, he just will smash you. But if you don't let him do that, then he's kind of ineffective, That's how Bilal Muhammad beat him. He just never let him get going. And Cowboy Oliveira, he was busting up Cowboy Oliveira in their first fight. Their second fight, Oliveira was just like, nah, and just came out and bodied him and did never let him get rolling. So if Sergio Moraes is going to win this fight, I think that's how he has to approach it. He has got to come and kind of punch Tim Means in the mouth early, slow him from getting that volume-based kind of interior fighting game going to work here. I think he could do it, but I just don't know that he will do it unless Tim Means is shot or on the physical decline. I think he's got good enough wrestling to stay upright. I mean, Moraes is a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, certainly, but I think Means can mostly keep it on his feet, and there he's longer, he's got more pop in his hands, more volume, just all the attributes that you kind of favor in any type of fight. So I like the fight. I think it's a fun fight. Give me Tim Means with decision or TKO here. Decision or I'm going to say late TKO. He just kind of wears down Sergio Moraes over the course of it, gets a third round stoppage.
I don't have a whole lot more to add about this pick. I think that's a good pick. Tim Means, I like the fact that you hinted on Tim Means as he kind of excels in his fights. That's kind of where he gets better. I think Sergio Moraes has a path to victory, but I don't think he's going to implement it. And that's kind of just being able to press forward and try to clinch up against a cage, because that's one thing we've seen him do here and there. But if he could get takedowns, I feel like that could be effective, because Tim Means hasn't really showed to be the best fighter off of his back. Moraes is pretty effective when he gets takedowns, but then again, he's only landed one takedown in his last 5 fights. He used to look for a lot more. He used to land a lot more, and he's just not really doing it right now. I think Sergio Moraes is kind of getting up there in age, but so is Tim Means, 35 to 33. But I think Tim Means definitely has the abilities, as long as he avoids some of the takedowns. I mean, Moraes hits really hard, but I don't see him getting a knockout over Tim Means. Tim Means is a very, very durable fighter. Couldn't tell you the last guy to stop him by strikes, if anybody's ever stopped Tim Means by strikes.
It's got to be Matt Brown.
I guess, yeah, Matt Brown.
Submission, wasn't it?
No, that was a submission, I'm pretty sure.
Was it?
Could be wrong, but
I thought.
Either way, he tagged him, and then I think he got like a guillotine or something. That's how it started, though. He did rock him, but
I remember that Matt Brown was hurt, and then he was beating the shit out of him suddenly. I don't remember how he finished it, but
yeah, it was a good fight for the round it was. But I'll keep it short and sweet now. My pick is Tim Means. I've got him by decision. I think he'll lose the first, and then win the next 2 and get a 29-28 victory over Sergio Moraes.
I'm going to Dirty Bird as well. He's the better striker, and that is what it'll come down to. Sergio Moraes' best path to victory here is to take Means down and control him and grapple him, because that's, at the end of the day, where Moraes shines. He's not a bad striker. He's not a very great striker by any means. And so I think, Tim Means is going to do pretty good work on the feet, although the big concern is, as Jed talked about, Tim Means just might be done. He might be fading. He might be going down. And that kind of sucks, because Tim Means, in his prime, which you could argue was even just a year ago or 2, he was a dangerous fighter. He was really talented, and I felt like he was sort of on the come up even just a couple years back. Like, besides the Matt Brown fight, he had been doing really well, but the no contest to Alex Oliveira sort of kicked things off. Then he got choked out by Oliveira. Then he beat Alex Garcia, but not in a super entertaining fight. And then, of course, he lost to Bilal Muhammad just in November. And so I feel like this is definitely not the best Tim Means anymore. Now, that being said, Moraes has taken his fair share of damage as well. And so he could be on the way down as well. You never know. He's coming off to knock out Kamaru Usman. And not too many people get knocked out by Usman, just for what it's worth, although Usman definitely had a message in that fight, compared to his most recent performance against Emil Mech. I think Means, although he has been taken down in the past, I feel like Alex Oliveira is a bit more physical than Moraes, a bit stronger, and that is one of the reasons he was able to out-grapple Means. So I like Means here. I like him to outpoint Moraes on the feet. I don't think we see the super dangerous Tim Means we've seen in the past. Again, back, like, say, August 2016 when he knocked out Sabah Homasi. I think Means is on the way down. Not enough, though, to lose to Sergio Moraes. So go with me, Tim Means, by decision. I think it'll be pretty much one-way traffic for Means because I think it's going to stay standing, and I think he'll dominate. So that's my pick. 30-27 decision, but no stoppage. And with that, let's move on to the FS1 6-fight main card. It kicks off at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We kick things off in the middleweight division with a fun one that might just end up being fight of the night at the end of the day. Thiago Santos taking on Anthony Smith. We got Delima Moreta taking on Lionheart. Jed, do you like the Brazilian or the American?
I like the Brazilian. We're in Brazil. Might as well take the Brazilians going forward. In fact, I actually think aside from the Tim Means fight, I am on the Brazilian train for this card. So didn't even realize I was doing that, but that's good to know. Look, Anthony Lionheart Smith, great story, put together some wins, started calling for a top guy after the Lombard win in his last fight, and now he's getting Thiago Santos, who probably is ranked. I don't know. Do we know what he's ranked?
15, maybe, right around there.
I feel like he probably is.
He's 15, yep. Thanks to George St. Pierre no longer being ranked. Thiago Santos bumped up to the rankings.
Nice. So he does get a ranked guy on this, but and it's a winnable fight for him. That's the other thing too. Look, I like Anthony Smith. Think seems like a good enough dude. I like he's out here trying to make things happen for himself. You got to respect that. He's not the best fighter in the world. He beat up Hector Lombard after losing 2 rounds to Hector Lombard in 2017. Like, that's not a good look, man. Hector Lombard is the last dude to lose to Johnny Hendricks. Like, it's not a good thing here that you have to come back to beat Hector Lombard. Thiago Santos is a very capable fighter who is mostly just lost to like pretty good guys. Spicely and Mousasi are good guys, but beating Hermanson, good guy. Joe Mishart, pretty good guy. Jack Marshman, like those are fine fighters, and I think he's done it more impressively than Anthony Smith has, really. And moreover, I just think he has a favor. I think he's more athletic, more explosive. He works more volume on the feet. He's a better takedown, like he's a better wrestler. And I think on top he can control and do better things. Really, I see if Anthony Smith is going to win, he is going to have to kind of weather an early storm, make Thiago Santos work and get tired and then try and take over a little later, really focus on the conditioning aspect here, because I think he's probably outmatched in the other facets of the game unless he just like lands a big shot, which is possible. It's not like Thiago Santos is impossible to knock out. If Anthony Smith connects, he can do it. I just think more often than not, this fight favors Thiago Santos. Give me your Marreta by, I'll say decision. I'll say Anthony Smith is tough and hangs in for the full 15.
I wanted to say that I thought Anthony Smith might be able to make it to a decision. I like the guy. He's got a badass personality, but I really think that Thiago Santos is just a better athlete all around here, pretty much everywhere that you look. Seeing that Anthony Smith, he's been stopped by strikes, I think, 6 times out of his 12 losses. And, of course, they were a long, long time ago, but there's nobody that he's fought recently that has the striking abilities of Thiago Santos. And when you get knocked out once or twice, especially 6 times, you're definitely at risk to get knocked out again. Thiago Santos, the only 2 knockout losses he has were to Vicente Luque, one of the hardest hitters, single shot hitters in the welterweight division, and Gegard Mousasi, one of the best middleweights in the world. 2 very decent guys to lose to. And he's put together a pretty impressive streak. Some fights I actually counted him out, especially the last fight. I picked Jack Hermanson. I thought Hermanson could work some takedowns. He didn't, and Santos got the victory there. I'm taking Thiago Santos in this one. I like Anthony Smith quite a bit, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to hang in there with a guy that has as much power and pretty good aggression when he implements it, like Thiago Santos. So give me Thiago Santos I did pick a first-round knockout. I think he's going to be able to go in there and get the job done. Seeing also that Anthony Smith's taken some damage against Hector Lombard and Andrew Sanchez, I think Thiago Santos is better than both of them. So give me Thiago Santos, like I said, first-round knockout over Anthony Smith there in Brazil.
I like Thiago Santos here as well, keeping things not too exciting here on Before the Battle, especially to kick off the main card. But I like him quite a bit here. Anthony Smith is a good fighter, but I think the big thing is that Santos is just more powerful, and he's a lot more athletic. The guy is pretty athletic. He has decent cardio. I'm not saying Smith doesn't, but he's just Santos is the better athlete. There's no other way to put it. His kicks are unbelievable. Power in every limb, and I like him quite a bit here. I don't know. I mean, Smith, I think if Smith is going to win, it's going to be by submission or by decision because of grappling. I think Smith has the grappling advantage here. We saw Eric Spicely choke out Santos in a huge upset, one of the bigger ones of 2016. And nothing against Eric Spicely, but that's the only way Eric Spicely is going to beat you, basically, is by submission. And I actually think Spicely is a decent fighter. I don't think he's a terrible fighter, but that was a bad loss for Santos. But I think it was an eye-opening one. I would think, I don't know for sure because I haven't talked to Santos personally or ever been to his camp or gym, but I would assume since that fight, he has worked a lot on his ground game. And of course, remember, he got choked or he got stopped by Gegard Mousasi as well. So that didn't help as well. But basically here, I don't think Smith is going to be able to get to the ground. And I think Santos is by far the better stand-up fighter. He's more powerful. And I like him to get the job done here. I like him inside the distance. Like Wes, unlike you, Jed, I like Santos in the second round. I think first round will be exciting. And then I think Santos starts really putting the wood to him in the second. And I think Santos has also worked on his cardio a bit. So that's why I'm not going first round because I think he might, he's pretty quick, but I feel like he's getting a bit more patient, which is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. So I like Santos here. I like Murata to win by second round TKO in one of the better fights of the evening. We move to the heavyweight division with Tim Johnson taking on Marcelo Golm. Interesting one at heavyweight. Jed, do you like Tim Johnson or Marcelo Golm?
You and I have different definitions of interesting, obviously. I'm super tempted to take Tim Johnson here just because Marcelo Golm has 6 fights in his career, made his UFC debut just a couple of months ago, and fair play to him. He submitted Christian Colombo. Also, he submitted Christian Colombo, who is the best guy he's ever fought, not because Christian Colombo's a good guy, but because the combined records of the 5 fighters he fought before then was 1-2. All of 3 of those fights came from against Nicholas Oliveira. That's right. He fought 4 dudes who hadn't fought anybody before. So, I have no belief that this guy is good because there's no reason to believe he is. He hasn't shown us that he's good. He has to prove that. And Tim Johnson, not a great fighter by any stretch, but he's at least an experienced fighter. He's a dude who can wrestle, can come out, control the fight against a random body, and, hits fairly hard as a heavyweight. But I can't believe him. I almost talked myself into Tim Johnson there because it seems really stupid to pick Golm. Because if Tim Johnson comes out and lands some takedowns and Golm is just I'm not a good fighter because I've been fighting for a year and I've never fought anybody worth shit. Won't be surprised. But he is younger. He seems somewhat athletic at least. He has beaten the guys he's supposed to have beaten well, so that's at least good. And Tim Johnson really seems to be on the decline, and it's in Brazil. It's going to get that hometown edge. Going to feel pumped, ready to go. I'm taking Marcelo Golm. I feel like shit about it, and I might very well change to Tim Johnson over the next couple of days. But for now, I'm going to take the younger guy. I'm going to take the guy fighting his home country against an opponent who sort of seems to kind of just be at the end of his career. But it's a bad pick, and you guys should both be taking Tim Johnson here.
Well, I'm not taking Tim Johnson. I'm going Marcelo Golm as well in this one. I know that he doesn't have wins over anybody recognizable besides, I guess, Christian Colombo, but he was talking retirement talks too. But just Timothy Johnson, I always have a hard time picking him because he shows a lot of inconsistencies in his game as well. He does pack some power behind his hands. His losses are to guys of decent caliber. Pretty much the biggest is Volkov, and then he lost to Jared Roshold, awful fighter. Junior Albini. Junior is a really cool guy. I had a chance to talk to him for probably about 30 minutes, and he's a nice person. I like his personality.
Suck. We have no idea if Junior Albini is good. The same way with the Golm fight. Albini just kind of came in and then won a fight, and then somehow he's fighting Andrei Arlovsky, and people were picking him to beat Arlovsky.
That's why I feel like that's after I saw that fight, that's kind of why I want to go Marcelo Golm's way, and that's the reason I'm going to stick with it. I want to go Timothy Johnson. I think that maybe he could try to throw in some takedowns, but we don't know how Marcelo Golm's takedown defense is. Timothy Johnson hardly ever looks for takedowns anymore. I don't want to elaborate too much further because I feel like this fight just has a lot of unpredictableness to it. But I'm going the same thing. I'm going Marcelo Golm by I went, to be honest, a first-round knockout just because I feel like this is an unpredictable fight, and it could go one of two ways, of course, like anything. But seeing the fact Golm has all these first-round victories and Timothy Johnson just lost a fight by a first-round knockout, I'm going to take the newcomer, the young guy to come in. He's only, 25 years old, pretty young. He's got some decent hand speed from what I've seen in some of his fights, so I'll take him by first-round stoppage just to make things interesting. We'll see how he does.
Now, this just might convince Jed to pick Tim Johnson, but I'm going to go Marcelo Golm as well here. I like Golm in this fight. It's going to go one of two ways. Golm's going to finish him in the first round, or Tim Johnson's going to grind on him and win a boring 3-round decision. And so that's kind of how this is playing out. If it goes if there's a different outcome to this one, I'll be surprised. Color me surprised. Basically, Marcelo Golm, he's younger. He seems to have more upside, although that's basically off of nothing because I don't think anything of Christian Colombo, and no one should. No disrespect to Christian Colombo, but he's probably the worst fighter in the heavyweight division, and I guess maybe he's still in the UFC. I would think not. Golm, though, seems athletic. I was really impressed with his debut, and again, it doesn't tell me a lot. I need to see him against a half-decent fighter, and I think this will be – the reason I said this is an interesting matchup, and stylistically it's not fantastic, but this will show us where Marcelo Golm is. And again, Tim Johnson's not a great fighter, but he's a lot better than Christian Colombo, and so we're going to see where Golm is. And I feel like Golm might end up just being kind of like another Junior Albini, knock out Tim Johnson in the first round, and then go on to be the next big thing and fall short in his second outing. And that really could happen. You never know. But I think in this one, this is a decent matchup for him because he clearly does have submission skills, and so that'll help him prevent from Johnson's grind for the most part. And I think he has better striking in this one. And so give me Marcelo Golm by knockout in round number 1. I do, like Jed, kind of think Johnson might be on the decline. I'm not thrilled that his nickname has yet to be the Beard. I think that is sort of just a must at this point. But, so give me Marcelo Golm by knockout in round number 1. But this is one where you're really counting on a guy that hasn't shown much in his MMA career, not just UFC career, and so it's a bit of a risky pick. We all could look like fools come Saturday, but we'll stick with the favorite here, Marcelo Golm. Let's move down to the lightweight division, 155 pounds. We have Michel Tractor Prazeres taking on Desmond the Predator Green. Des Green is, of course, coming off a loss to Rustam Khabilov. That was a very close fight. Khabilov won, but Green stuck in there for what it's worth. Also of note, Desmond Green has a win over the number 4 featherweight in the world, Josh Emmett, that now technically looks a lot better than it did back in April of last year. Michel Prazeres what did he do as of late? Let me look. He is coming off the win. He's on a big winning streak. He hasn't fought since September. He submitted Mads Brunel in that fight. Before that was his best performance maybe to date when he submitted Josh Berkman in round number 1. But again, it's Josh Berkman. So another, a kind of an interesting fight, maybe a little more interesting than the last one. Des Green, Michel Prazeres. Jed, who do you like?
I'm so mad that you brought up the Josh Emmett thing. God damn it. Josh Emmett shouldn't be ranked.
I knew that was going to come.
It's fucking stupid. It's so stupid. I don't care that this has nothing to do with this fight. Josh Emmett is ranked for a fight at featherweight that he did not make the contractual weight for. The only reason he is ranked is because he beat Ricardo Lamas, but he didn't fight Ricardo Lamas at featherweight, so there's no fucking reason for him to be ranked. Certainly not at 4th, because it's not like the Des Green loss was far ago. It was last year. It's insane. It's fucking insane, and I hate it so much that I can't even talk about this fight. Here's what I'll say about this fight. It's the same fucking fight. Des Green just had this fight. Rustam Khabilov is, in many ways, really similar fight to Michel Prazeres. There's going to be a lot of takedowns. Prazeres is maybe a little more submission-oriented on the ground, but he's going to come out. He's going to try to take you down 1,000,000 times, and he's more often than not going to succeed with that. I do think Prazeres is maybe not as good on top as Rustam Khabilov is, but is maybe at least more active in the striking game, which will then open up more takedowns. Des Green had a lot of success in the later rounds of that fight. In the first round, Khabilov took him down a bunch, just got in, did what he wanted, and then Des Green was able to adjust. I think we're just going to see the same fight, and I think I'm just going to pick the guy who won the last fight this time. Like, give me Michel Prazeres. I think his wrestling is good enough to be effective here. I think he's relentless enough. He's physical enough. This is a dude who's jacked. Like, look at Trator and be like, holy shit, that guy does not skip the gym. That is not a thing that Michel Prazeres does. So, I think Des Green's a pretty good fighter. If he can sprawl and brawl here, good for him. Maybe getting a slight step down from Khabilov, but I think the same playbook is in effect here, and I'm taking Prazeres by decision.
I don't really have much else to add. I mean, Desmond Green was a great wrestler back in his college days, but all of his losses, and I'm just taking a look at him now, and I'll say him, Daniel Weichel, his last 4, Daniel Weichel, Kurt Hollabaugh, Andre Harrison, and Rustam Khabilov, all wrestlers and all guys that look for takedowns. Michel Prazeres is the exact same guy. I really have nothing else to say. I think Michel Prazeres is going to get the job done here. He's looked really good in his last 5 fights in a row. Got the job done. Had some takedowns when he fought Kevin Lee. I actually got him down 3 times in that fight. I think Prazeres is just going to be the more active guy, seeing the fact in 9 UFC fights, he's looked for 91 takedowns, and he's landed 35 of them, that being 38% successful. So pretty decent. He's active with those takedowns. Green could maybe land some strikes, but I think Prazeres is going to get it done. And I'm kind of confident in it, to be honest. But I could be wrong. Green could surprise me. But Prazeres is my pick by a unanimous decision, or there's a good chance maybe he can go in there. He's got some heavy hands, just doesn't have a lot of knockouts and doesn't use it too often. He'll use that power to get takedowns. Michel Prazeres is my pick by a unanimous decision.
I will complete the hat trick yet again. Give me Michel Tractor Prazeres, the Brazilian, in this one. I'm not going to say it again, but this is kind of like how Desmond Green has lost before, and Prazeres is going to land a bunch of takedowns, and it might be entertaining because Prazeres is a bit more active than Khabilov. Interestingly, Green is a lot bigger. Prazeres is super strong. He's super stocky for the division. But Green does have a 6-inch reach advantage, and the height is 4 inches. And so I feel like there's a decent chance Green's going to be able to keep Prazeres off him and just sprawl his, defend the takedowns basically, and keep it standing. And he might have an advantage on the feet, although Prazeres striking, I think, is getting better. I think Prazeres has a bit more finishing ability than we've seen in the past fights. I'm more going back to his last couple ones where he has finished Berkman and Brunel. I think ultimately this will be a dominant win for Prazeres. I think it actually a bit more clear than the Kabalov fight, because the Kabalov fight, I just checked back on MMA decisions. Over half of the media members submitting their scorecard scored it for green, myself included. And so I remember it being close. I just didn't remember exactly which way I did have it going. And so there's a good, Green has a good chance here. There's definitely a path to victory, but he has to keep it standing. His wrestling, he's a good wrestler himself, and so that'll help him against any of these style matchups. But history, I think, will repeat itself and give me Michelle Prazeres by decision. We move to the women's flyweight division. We have former UFC title challenger, and as Jed would say, the best female fighter on the planet today, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko, taking on newcomer Priscilla Kashova. Jeez, I mean, I talk about butchering names, but that was even worse. I'm gonna go with Priscilla, and to just stick with that, Valentina Shevchenko versus Priscilla. Jed, I don't think we need to talk about this one.
She's taking on some dead woman. That's who she's taking on. We don't need to know this woman's name because it doesn't matter. This is her first defense of her UFC bantamweight title that she was robbed of by the judges in wherever the fuck they were in that last fight. Pretty clearly should have beaten Amanda Nunes. Just obviously a much better fighter than Amanda Nunes and much better fighter than anyone on the planet. I didn't look at all into her opponent. Her opponent could be the next, the second coming. I would have no idea, and it wouldn't change my pick at all. Valentina Shevchenko is the best female fighter on the planet today. I would take her in a fight with Amanda Nunes tomorrow. I would take her to beat Chris Cyborg in a fight tomorrow. I think that despite the fact that she is a flyweight, she is also the best featherweight in the world. She's the best bantamweight in the world. She is the best flyweight in the world. If she cuts off a leg, her one leg itself will be the best fucking strawweight in the world. She is the best female fighter on the planet. I will die on this hill. And she is going. This is a setup fight. This is a fight where she is supposed to show up, show out, and then she fights Nico Montano. They put the belt around her waist because she will beat the shit out of Nico Montano, who, no disrespect, I think is a decent fighter. Valentina Shevchenko, they're just trying to expedite getting her a belt as quickly as possible so they can build the division around her the same way they did strawweight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where they can start building a division up. They have a flag bearer for the rest of the world to kind of chase after. She carries the torch. She's got miles of personality, so she's great for that job. And eventually, after she gets the belt and has a couple wins, they can do her versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, a fight that basically everyone who's deep into the MMA game is screaming for. There are very few MMA fights I want more than that one right now. So Shevchenko is going to get a first-round knockout because she's the best woman on the planet at fighting.
I'll just say now, I watched tape on this Priscilla Cachoeira girl, and it's pretty much like just a small Gabby Garcia. She has no clue what she's doing when she punches. She has power. That's the only thing I'll give her, but she comes so slow behind her punches, and she's just terrible. Valentina Shevchenko is going to win. I don't know why I have to talk about it. I picked a first-round knockout. Don't have her on my DraftKings team because I think other people get first-round knockouts on the card. But if you want to throw her on there, she's the most expensive person. Have at it. She's going to win. She's not going to lose. Shevchenko's the best. So Shevchenko first-round knockout.
Seems good to me. Valentina Shevchenko, I'll switch things up and go submission. I honestly don't see this resulting in knockout. She hasn't won by knockout in the UFC. I know competition-wise, this is a lot different, and she could prove me wrong, but I think it's a bit more likely for her to tap out Kashora or whatever you want to say than knock her out. So give me Shevchenko by first-round submission. And in her last non-title fight, pretty much ever in the flyweight division. We move on to the co-main event. We got bantamweight contenders number 8, John the Magician Dodson, taking on number 10, Pedro Munoz. Interesting matchup here in the sense that, stylistically it's fun, but it's actually really fun. But Dodson is coming off Dodson is coming off a loss. He was recently decisioned by Marlon Rice in a close one. I know, Jed, you feel like Dodson won that one. I know I scored it from Rice. I don't recall how Wes saw that one. Munoz is coming off an upset submission over Rob Font. Super impressive performance in his last outing. Good fight here. Looking forward to it. Jed, you like Dodson or Munoz?
Dude, come on. We all know what I'm doing here. I think John Dodson has been getting screwed over and over again since moving back up to bantamweight. I do not believe he has lost. I think the last time John Dodson lost was against Demetrius Johnson. Totally lost that fight. I think he lost the first time he fought Demetrius Johnson too, but he definitely beat John Lineker. I think he definitely beat Marlon Moraes. I think this dude should have 4 wins at bantamweight over top guys in the division. And frankly, if the judges were better at it, he would be 4-0 right now. And TJ Dillashaw would have to be fighting him. They would have to be having the rematch because if you don't remember, he has a knockout victory over TJ Dillashaw. He won tough by colding TJ Dillashaw. And like that's a ready-made fight that the judges have taken from us because I think straight up, I just think poor judging. I think he is not the flashiest guy. His newer style is not as flashy, and it lets him throw maybe get outworked a little bit, but the difference between them landing more punches is that he lands awesome fucking punches for the most part. I'm not saying he's the best bantamweight alive, but I do think he's beaten all the guys he's fought at bantamweight. I think he deserves a title shot. And to be fair, Pedro Munoz has been on a run since the Rivera loss. Like this dude is a dude who he seems to be putting it together now. The Rob Font, hell of a fighter, beat him, but he also fought Damian Stasiak and Justin Scoggins. Did Scoggins blow weight for that? I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure.
I just can't.
Yeah,
it feels like he did because he blows weight for everything. That was Scoggins moving to bantamweight and still fucking up, right?
Yep, that was.
Yeah, exactly. So like Justin Scoggins, who is a guy with a ton of talent but seems incapable of putting things together, good. And Pedro Munoz, close loss to Jimmy Rivera, who's awesome. Like his losses are to the best guys in the division, so he deserves this kind of fight to sort of parse it all out. His losses are to Rivera and Rafael Assunção, who is probably the most underrated fighter in MMA, straight up. Like I think Rafael Assunção is the most underrated guy in MMA. And Jimmy Rivera should also be fighting for a bantamweight title shot. But I think that when he stepped up to that level of competition, Pedro Munoz has been just a little bit behind. I think he can win. I won't be super shocked if Dodson loses another decision he should win. If Munoz maybe lands a few more punches, but Dodson just lands the more effective blows, but the refs favor the guy who lands more. But I think Munoz is much more hittable than Lineker's hittable. Don't get me wrong. Lineker relies on his chin. But I do think Munoz is much more hittable than Marlon Moraes. And so because John Dodson is, people forget because he hasn't done it in a while. This dude is one of the hardest punching dudes in the sport, pound for pound. Like, he is a monster hitter. I think he's going to crack Pedro Munoz. I think he's probably going to get his first stoppage in a while. If he tries to do some stupid shit like take Pedro Munoz down, Dodson might get tapped out. But I don't think he's going to. I think he's just going to beat John Dodson. He might get outworked a little bit, but he's going to land a big fight-changing blow that shifts the tide and gets him another win so he can maybe work his way to the title shot that he deserves. So give me John Dodson. I'm going to say second-round KO.
Real quick, I want to hop in and say Scoggins didn't actually blow weight against Munoz. I was just remembering him messing up in the actual fight, and that sort of triggered my memory. Fun fact, Justin Scoggins has never actually missed weight.
Okay. I mean, he missed weight for – no, he did. He missed weight for – he missed weight for Ian McCall.
Yeah.
No, he missed weight for Ian McCall, didn't he?
He didn't weigh in for that one.
Are you certain? I thought that they just canceled the fight and then he weighed in.
They canceled before the weigh-ins.
Are you 100% on that?
Yeah.
I really thought he weighed in, and then McCall was just like, no, I'm not going to fight this jackass. But okay, fair. I mean, that's missing weight. If you opt not to weigh in, you miss weight.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going ahead. Let me just interrupt real quick. I like John Dodson and Pedro Munhoz quite a bit. They're two pretty entertaining fighters. I actually saw John Dodson's last fight, the one with Marlon Vera, or not Marlon Vera. We talked about him earlier. Marlon Moraes. Of course, I'm a little biased because I've always liked Marlon Moraes. In person, I thought he won. I've never actually seen the fight on video, so I guess, and I heard it was a lot closer than it actually was. It's something I need to go back and watch. But of course, me being my biased self, in person, I thought Moraes won. But either way, I think John Dodson's still one of the best bantamweights in the world. I think him and Moraes, and then I guess you still have Rivera and Dillashaw, Garbrandt, and Cruz. I feel like that's the top of the bundle right there. And Pedro Munhoz is showing himself to be up there as well. He's putting together a really impressive streak. His only two losses were, as Jed mentioned, to Rivera, very close fight in 2015, and then Sun Tzu in February of 2014. So it's been a long, long time since we've seen Pedro Munhoz win, or lose. He's won 4 fights in a row. I think Munhoz does have a good chance in this, but I, in the end, am going John Dodson. I think Dodson, if he shows a little bit more activity, sometimes he kind of struggles with that, but and maybe Munhoz, as Jed mentioned, if Munhoz outworks him on the feet and Dodson doesn't land that punch, Munhoz could get the victory here, but he slows down sometimes as fights go on. Dodson's sometimes the same, but not as much. I think Dodson's going to be able to get just – if he can maintain that output and just land some pretty decent strikes, I think he'll get the job done. So my pick in the end is John Dodson. Unanimous decision, I'll say 29-28 to 130-27. I think Munhoz does have a good chance, but I just don't know if I see it against a guy like John Dodson. So I'm going to stick with Dodson here, the magician. To get there's another, I guess, American I'm picking to get an upset here in Brazil. A little bit of a hometown disadvantage kind of fighter, but I think Dodson's still pretty good.
Give me John Dodson here as well. Close fight. I think it'd be pretty competitive. But, I think Dodson has what it takes to keep this one standing, which is where he'll do well in this fight. If Munhoz is able to really control him in the grappling department, get him down, clinch him, then we could be seeing a completely different fight. I mean, Dodson hasn't been known as a guy who falls on the ground. I mean, he's a striker for the most of the part, but Munhoz is really talented on the ground. He's extremely good with his submissions, and he's super quick too on the ground. I mean, look at the Justin Scoggins fight. He was losing, and then kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I know a lot of that was based off Scoggins, but yeah, you still have to be talented to do what Munhoz did in that fight. And even, in his last one, Rob Font, that was a pretty quick submission as well after a close first round. So the guy is dangerous on the ground, and so Dodson has to watch out for that. But I think he does have the overall skills to keep it standing for the most part, and that's where he's going to win. He's going to outstrike Pedro Munhoz en route to a decision win. I don't see his finish here. I think this is going to go all 15 minutes. I mean, if there was going to be a stoppage, I guess I'd have to go Dodson by knockout. He has quite the power in both hands, even at bantamweight upper weight class. I just can't see Munhoz tapping him out. I can't see that happening. So give me John Dodson. I like him by decision here. This is going to be a striking affair, and that's where Dodson's better. So John Dodson by decision. With that, we move on to the main event of the evening of UFC Belim. It's Lyoto Machida taking on rising contender Eric Anders. We got, what is Machida? Number 13 taking on the unranked, boy, Eric Anders. Brazil versus America. I know a lot of you guys have been going a lot with the non-Brazilians in this one. Does that change, Jed?
Nope. I mean, this fight's just depressing because Lyoto Machida is going to lose. And that's it. The best way I can break down this fight is Lyoto Machida is one of the most technical fighters ever. He's not one of the best fighters ever. He is a Hall of Famer, former champion. Arguably could have been a 2-weight champion. Could have won that middleweight title shot against Chris Weidman. But he's done, man. He's just done. And that's it. And I feel bad saying it, but it's true. He doesn't have it anymore. Derek Brunson, he was winning the fight until Derek Brunson landed a punch. And then that was it. That was the end of the game. And it's going to be like this. He is much more skilled than Eric Anders. and he is going to be winning this fight right up until the moment that Eric Anders hits him in the face, and then he's going to fall over like a big bag of bricks, and it's going to be very, very sad. Eric Anders is super athletic, very raw still. He has not been around the fight game for a ton of time. I'm going to check. He made his debut, I guess, in 2012. So 6 years or that was his amateur debut. He made his pro debut in 2013. No, sorry, he made his pro debut in 2015. So he has been fighting for 2 full years, actually. I mean, a pretty decently extensive amateur background, but he's really been fighting for 2 years. This guy has upside. He hits really hard on the feet, and he's going to hit Lyoto Machida at some point. He's going to miss for a while, but eventually Machida's going to linger too much. And that's the thing. Machida's style is not one that's going to age well. Like Roy Jones Jr. in his prime, he relies a lot on his ability to his fast twitch reactions to just get out of the way of the shots, just keep that range, because he can't come in and counter and not get countered back, picking his right spots. Younger, faster dudes are just able to counter his counters, and Eric Anders is just going to eventually land something really devastating, and it's going to be super, super fucking sad for all parties involved, other than Eric Anders. Good for him. And Bama football. Give me Eric Anders by second round KO.
Yeah, I'm really confident in Eric Anders. He's a guy that I had my eyes on before he was even in the UFC. I thought he has a pretty cool personality. Of course, I'm not the biggest Alabama fan in the world, but I do remember watching the Rose Bowl a few years ago when I was in 9th grade and watched him pretty much save the team. So ever from then, I've known who Eric Anders was. Never thought he was going to be a mixed martial artist, but here he is doing work and putting in good work. I think he's one of the best up-and-coming middleweights that we probably have. I think he's got a lot of potential. He shows some good skills, pretty much well-rounded in all areas of his game. Great postural control when he gets you down on the ground. Also has very powerful hands, especially his left. I've been really high on Eric Anders. I love Lyoto Machida to death. I think everybody can attest to that. I think I don't know anybody that dislikes Lyoto Machida, to be honest. But it's Eric Anders' time, your boy. I think he's just, like I said, a little bit at this point in their career. Anders is on the rise. Lyoto Machida's on the fall. There's nothing really that Machida I see he could do to possibly win this fight besides maybe just landing a kick or landing a good hard shot. But, man, Anders has not taken that much damage at all in his mixed martial arts career. I just think Anders, when you look at it right now, I think he's a better fighter. I think Jed nailed it on the head. Machida's got the technical advantage, but I think Anders has everything else. Maybe even the speed of Machida's slowed down quite a bit from what we've seen, and Anders still showed some pop in his hands. But I'm going to go Eric Anders. Hate to say it, but I picked him by first-round knockout. I just like him quite a bit. Like I said, I'm pretty high on the guy. I think he's going to make some moves in the middleweight division. I think he could be ranked top 10 one day. I don't know if now's the time. I think it might take a loss before he gets there, but I don't think Lyoto Machida is going to be the guy that he loses to. So Anders is my pick, first-round knockout. I don't know if Machida is going to fight again after he loses, but nothing I can really say with Machida. I'll say one more thing. His last win came in December 2014, and that was to CB Dalloway. Before that, it was to Musasi. Good, of course, great fighter, but 2014 as well. It's been years. I don't see Machida getting it done here. Eric Anders is my pick.
Yeah, kind of. I gotta agree. Give me Eric Anders in this one. Although I'm not as maybe I don't know if this is like my heart speaking to me or if I really believe so. Like I feel like this is closer on paper than some people are giving both fighters credit for, or the fight in general credit for. I think like Machida has a chance, but I just don't know how big that chance is, and ultimately I don't think it's a great chance. Basically how I see this one playing out is Eric Anders. He's still super green, and I sort of Machida is so done where I'm still picking Anders with relative confidence, but I'm not as high on Eric Anders as some people are. I think Eric Anders has a lot of potential. I think he will be in the top 15 eventually, maybe even after this fight, considering Machida is ranked, I think, at number 13. But I think we need to slow down on him a little bit. He's super athletic. He has the potential. He has the skills, but he's still green. He's still figuring mixed martial arts out. He's still getting better, so that's a good thing. And his cardio is getting better. Every part of his game is getting better. And so Anders has a lot of potential, but I think we need to slow down. I wasn't overly impressed with his win over Marcus Perez. I think that's a fight he probably should have stopped. Obviously, his debut over Hoffman Natal was super impressive, but I just didn't see quite what I wanted to see out of a rising guy like Eric Anders in his second fight. And so that could have been just sort of a one fight where Perez ended up being tougher than he thought, or maybe Perez is actually a good fighter, and I'm just not really giving him that credit or haven't realized that yet. But he still has what it takes to beat Machida. I gotta, have to admit it. I can't go Machida in this fight. Machida, on the feet, he probably could outpoint Eric Anders, but it's not going to be on the feet. Eric Anders has the potential to land the big shots, kind of like Derek Brunson, and just put Machida out. I think that's possible, but I think more than likely Eric Anders, after getting not tagged but hit a couple times, I think will take it to the ground. The guy is really talented in the wrestling department. He's he's gritty, he's tough, he's a bit of a grinder as well. And so I think he'll get on top of Machida, whose takedown defense isn't so great, and I think he'll just pound him out. So I like Eric Anders by TKO probably late in the first round. It might go to the second, but I don't have enough faith in Machida for him to survive the early onslaught of Eric Anders. So I like him by ground and pound TKO. I don't think it'll be a standing one-punch KO, kind of like the Derek Brunson fight. I do think it'll take a takedown to get Machida out of there, but I do think the end result will be the same. First round TKO, Eric Anders in his first main event, and in the fight that catapults him to the top 15 and to, in a way, contendership. So that is my pick, Eric Anders in the first round. Although Machida, if he takes him into deep waters, I got to say, might get interesting, and fingers are crossed, because I want to see an interesting fight. Okay, that does it for UFC Fight Night 125, UFC Blam, UFC Fight Night Machida vs. Anders, whatever you want to call it. Let's move on to our bonuses and our underdog pick of the week. Wes, we'll go to you first. Who do you got for your 2 performance of the nights, for your 1 fight of the night, and who is your underdog pick of the week?
I'm going to go with my fight of the night first. My fight of the night is going to be, I think there's a couple decent picks, but I'm going to go Dotson Munoz. I think that could be a really fun fight, especially if Dotson doesn't get a knockout blow. I'm going to give my 2 performances. Anders, I don't know if Anders doesn't get a first round finish, he's not going to get a bonus, I don't think. But I'm going to go Anders for 1. My second one, man, it's hard to go against Shevchenko, but I'm going to take Thiago Santos. I'll take Thiago. Maybe he can get something crazy. And my underdog pick, I guess, Jed, we might have to go the same one on this unless you have some others, but I think I'm going to go Joseph Morales. I think he has a good shot in that fight.
Well, you're lucky. Morales, you had picked Morales, who's an underdog. I have 2. I'm going with my other underdog pick. Okay. Nick has not picked an underdog. He went straight chalk on the whole card.
So he's a coward.
Pretty much. So, Nikolai, why don't you tell us your picks, including your underdog pick?
My underdog pick of the week, hate to copy West, but it goes to Joseph Morales. Here, I'm not picking Morales, but just looking down the card, if there's one underdog I think has the best chance, it's Bopo Morales. I think that is a razor-thin fight, and I will not be shocked if I end up coming out on top for the underdog pick of the week and not my pick. But picking Figueiredo, but have to pick an underdog, and that will be Joseph Morales. My performances, I guess 1 probably will go to Eric Anders. Let me just look down the card. I feel like there's a chance. Yeah, I mean, I got to go Eric Anders and Shevchenko.
Jesus, be more original.
Hold on, Wes, did you both go Anders and Shevchenko?
Well, I took Thiago Santos, but you should switch it up, man. Do a different underdog. Go for Pedro Munoz. Somebody. No,
I'm a lot less confident in Munoz than I am Joseph Morales. I'm here to win. I have been doing terrible all 2018. I've yet to get a main event right pick it right. And so maybe fourth time's a charm, but
you've yet to get any belt off of me either, just in case you're wondering.
I haven't won anything this year, so.
Plus, we almost match on bonuses, so I'll be retaining it every time.
Fight of the night, another interesting one. There's actually a lot of options. I feel like Soto Alcantara is right up there. Santos Smith is right up there as well. Wes, who did you go?
I went Dodson Munoz.
Okay, well, I definitely wasn't going to go Dodson Munoz. I'm going to go Santos Smith.
Okay, Santos Smith. Well, that's surprising. Well, my fight of the night, I surprised neither of you guys give it any love. Tim Means, Sergio Moraes. I think Tim Means is just an exciting fighter, and Sergio Moraes, I think that's probably just going to be gas for as long as it goes on. My performances, same as Nick. I'm taking Anders and Shevchenko. Of course, I'm going to ride with Shevchenko. It's my girl. And Eric Anders, I think, is going to do horribly mean things to the old man that is Lyoto Machida. My underdog pick of the week, I was going to take Morales because I am more confident in Morales, but I don't want all three of us to have the same underdog pick because somehow Nick, who hasn't picked an underdog, is picking Morales too. So I'll go with the other underdog I picked to win. I'll take Yuri Alcantara at home with his physical advantages to beat up Joe Soto. That leaves us at DraftKings, son.
Let's go with you first because you went last for everything else.
I think we go with me first because I have the belt, but maybe we should make you guys go first. Since
usually when in the UFC, when they're introducing the champion, they're second. So
yeah, I know. So maybe I should go second here. I think I'm gonna retain my champion's right to go second. Go, plebeians.
Okay. Well, my screen just went fuzzy, and so this let's see if I can actually read this. And thank God it went fuzzy when we're all done. But I'm going Eric Anders to top things off. That follows by Marcelo Golm, Joe Soto, Joseph Morales. So I'm giving Morales the love everywhere except for my picks. Damir Hadzovic is the one I really don't like in this one. I think Patrick will win quite clearly, but he's cheap, and I needed a cheap guy because I'm also going with Vienna, the first fighter of the night. And so I think that is it. So it's Anders, Golm, Hadzovic, Morales. Oh, Joe Soto. I don't remember if I mentioned him, and Vienna.
Okay.
Cool. All right, I'll get mine next. I'll give the two I'm a little worried about. First being Pedro Munoz. Thought he was a decent price for how cheap he is. And then the second one I'm not confident in is Douglas Silva de Andrade. And then I have my four confident picks. I have Poliana Vienna. I have Michel Prazeres. I have Joseph Morales as well. And completing it out, hopefully everybody has him, Eric Anders.
Well, look at that, boys. We currently all of us share two picks. All of us have Eric Anders and Poliana Viana on our squads. Not entirely surprising. Both of those guys really expensive, by the way. My team, I'm going to fiddle with this some, so it might be different by the time Fight Night comes, but I've decided to take a gamble, to take a risk here because
I didn't.
Not really. I mean, you sort of did, but I've already got two expensive people, but you know that I have to ride with my girl, Valentina Shevchenko, the greatest female fighter on the planet of Earth. I got to put her on my team. She's also the most expensive. She's also the most expensive fighter. But like I said, I think she's going to draw this girl. I think she's getting an early KO. She's going to show up, show out at flyweight. So that's three very expensive persons. I had to fill my team. I only have a couple of underdogs, and Yuri Alcantara is not even an underdog as far as money goes. He still costs $8,000. So Joseph Morales also on my team. So all three of us have Morales as well. I'm rounding it out with Des Green, who we all seem to think has a pretty decent chance here against Michel Prazeres. We argued that maybe he had beaten Rustam Khabilov or whatever. I think maybe, so I'm going to take him. I think he can maybe get some points there. And then round my team out with Anthony Smith, who only costs $7,000, but I'm putting him on my squad. Maybe he does something special against Thiago Santos here. At least hope he can go the full 15 minutes and get 30 points in a losing effort.
Alrighty. Cool. There we go. So, episode 98 of Before the Battle, UFC Belém edition in the books. Thank you all for watching. We really do appreciate it. Jed, remind everybody where they can find you on social media and anything you would like to plug. Your time is now.
You can find me on social media on Twitter, Jed Meshew. I write for MMAfighting.com. Check that out every day for my morning report in the mornings. Also on the weekends, I do a gambling preview column for the upcoming weekend of events. And every Monday, me and Alexander Lee do a column called Missed Fists, recapping the best fights from the past weekend that weren't on the major shows that might have slipped under the radar. Give that a peep as well. It's been fun, gentlemen.
Wes?
Good deal. Get mine real quick. My Twitter, you can follow me at all that MMA. I'll do all my social media communication. Couldn't talk right there. You can find my writing over at MMAsucker.com. And you can also find me for the hell of it on Instagram at Wesley Riddle. Guys, I got to peace out. But it was a pleasure as always. I will hopefully be around next weekend unless something comes up with family. But until then, we'll stay in touch throughout Twitter. But for the rest of you, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, guys.
See you, Wes. My theory is that Wes just dipped out 3 minutes early because he knows I'm about to plug literally everything, and the kitchen sick, and I can't blame him. So here goes nothing. Follow me on Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. I'd really appreciate it. Check out my other shows, Beyond Combat and the MMA Circus. Both of them are on this YouTube channel, so easy to find. The MMA Circus also on BloodyElbow.com and any other podcasting platform, including iTunes and SoundCloud. Check out all of my MMA writing over at BloodyElbow.com. Check out my new Facebook page. I started it, launched it over the weekend, and I'd really appreciate it if you could give that a like. It's just Nick Baldwin -MMA journalist. Type in my name on Facebook, you'll probably find it like that. So I'd appreciate that. Also, my Instagram page, fairly new, Instagram.com/Nick Baldwin MMA. Give this video a thumbs up down there. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. This is where you can find all of my interviews and pretty much any other content I have that is audio or video. So go subscribe, and any feedback, good or bad, go drop a letter, a message in the comment section below. And again, I would really appreciate that. As of yesterday, I am now responsible for the Bloody Elbow Instagram account. So I'll be doing a bunch of stuff over there. So go give that a follow as well. Instagram.com/Bloody Elbow. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. And Jed and I will be doing a post-fight wrap-up show after the fights on Saturday. The first one of what we plan to be a routine show after every UFC card, and maybe a big Bellator card. We'll play that by ear. But anyways, thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. For Jed Meshew and Wes Riddle, my name is Nick Baldwin, and enjoy the fights on Saturday.
Love you guys.
Jed, are you forgetting something?
I said love you guys. Did you not catch it?
No,
Love you guys.
you glitched out as usual.